When my Prius trunk handle broke, I found out it's a common problem with the Gen 2 Prius. After searching YouTube, I wasn't satisfied with the other repair options. In this video, I'll show you a simple solution to fix your handle using 3D printed inserts. This repair is strong and weatherproof and uses the original trunk handle and screws. It also looks and works just like new. If you don't have a 3D printer, don't worry, because I'm selling these inserts in my Etsy shop for an affordable price. And if you do have a 3D printer, the STL files are linked below. Either way, check the description for those links. But don't leave the video just yet. I'm going to show you the repair process and the tips needed to make sure your repair goes smoothly. So first thing I did here is just print the inserts because I'm going to need those. But let me show you how this breaks. So this is supposed to be held on by 4 different screws, but they just hold on with this plastic that just snaps after a lot of time. So I kind of pointed those out right there. First thing you're gonna do to get started is you need to pull off this panel that's on the interior of your trunk, and that will give us access to the nuts for these screws. So you might just be able to pull it off from the side, or you might need a trim tool to kind of pry out under it. But just get that off. Here I'm pointing out the 2 center screws. You can see that they broke off this plastic where they're supposed to be holding. So what we're gonna do is get a 10mm socket and get a socket wrench or a drill or a screwdriver, whatever you have, and you're gonna unscrew them. So you can see right here, that's where the 2 center nuts are. So you'll just get in there, take those off. And be extra careful not to drop the nuts down in that cavity back there, because it can make it a little hard to get them out. It can turn into a search. So here's the one on the right. You can see you can slide this blue thing out of the way to make it easier to unscrew that. And just make sure you don't lose any of these nuts or bolts, because you're going to be using them later. Alright, so once all 4 of those are off, next thing I'm going to do is clean off with isopropyl alcohol where I'm going to be gluing, because this repair does involve using glue, and so we don't want it to be dirty so that the glue can really adhere. And don't worry if you're not exactly getting where I'm gluing, you'll be able to see it later in the video, and that's where you know you need to clean it out. Here's the glue I'm using. It's 3M plastic and trim adhesive. This stuff just seemed like a good choice because it's weatherproof and it's made for plastic. So now all I'm going to do here is get my inserts. They all look different, so you'll know where to put them. These are the 2 center inserts. And you can see they just grab onto the bolt head just like that. And this is where they go. They're mirror images of each other, so you want to make sure you place them correctly so that you can slide the bolt in after. So all you're going to do is take your glue and glue around the perimeter of this thing, just so that it'll hold itself in there. And then just make sure you slide it in on the correct way so that you have that cavity showing so that you can fit the bolt in later. Oh crap. You can see I'm just taking some extra glue, putting it wherever I can to help it hold better. The great thing about these 2 middle pieces is that the glue isn't actually structural, it's just holding the pieces in place so they don't slide around. But you'll see with the 2 outside pieces, it is a little more reliant on the glue. But the thing is, these center pieces are taking most of the force when you're using the handle. So these are the important ones. Alright, so this is the piece for the left, and what this insert does is it just fits into that cavity like the other ones, and it will help you to reattach the plastic wherever it broke. Everyone's is going to break in a different way, but you can see here the bolt is still in the plastic piece. I just left it because it wasn't in the way, and I'm just going to glue that back into place. You'll be able to see kind of where it broke off from. Just try and match that placement as good as you can, because that will allow the bolt to line up and go into the trunk where it's supposed to go. So I just glued the perimeter here, and I think here, yeah, I attach it onto that plastic piece, and then once that sets a little bit, then I can take that whole piece and glue it down onto the handle. Here's the right side. So this one is 2 individual pieces just because the cavity is split into 2. You'll see these 2 pieces have some little tabs on them, and when you slide them in, you'll want the tabs to face in. You'll see when I put it in. But basically those tabs go over to the left side, and that'll give you another spot to put a little bit of glue for more strength. Here's the smaller piece. And so the thing about these 2 outside bolts is they're always going to break in different ways, so your situation might be a little unique, but the goal is just to glue and get the bolt back into its original placement. You can see here I'm putting that upside down, so I flip it over at some point and then it works just fine. And here's my piece that broke off, so I just put a little bit of glue on that and glue it right onto the insert. So you can see how the outside pieces, they're relying on the glue for their strength, which isn't as strong as the center, but these ones won't be taking the force. So alright, so what you'll need to do now is basically allow the glue to cure a little bit. If you try to put it back to, oh yes. So this part, I'm just taking a stick so I can fit some more glue in there. I forgot, after you glued everything in, I kind of just started adding glue wherever I could because I wanted it to be as strong as possible. So just take that extra glue, add it around the perimeter. Wherever you think it'll make it a little stronger is good. But basically, after you glue, you need to let it cure before you try to put things together so that you have that strong bond before you start messing with it and wiggling everything around. So here you can see how that's supposed to fit in. So here's me just adding that extra glue all around. And after your glue is dry, this is when you're going to start putting your bolts in. So on these 2 middle pieces, you're going to slide that bolt right into that cavity right there. I had a little bit of trouble getting it in, probably because I got a little bit of glue in the way, so I think I took like a utility knife and cut that out. And I eventually had to use a hammer just to kind of coax it to get into there. But once it's in, then you won't have a problem at all. So yeah, here's me hammering that in. And now your goal here is you want all 4 of your bolts to basically go into their respective holes in the trunk. You also have 2 clips that will need to go in, that's those white things. And the other thing you'll want to pay attention to is, yep, there's those clips, is this kind of weather strip right here. That piece is supposed to go over your trunk handle. So what you're going to do is put your 2 outside long bolts into the holes first, and then line up the short bolts, and then what I'm going to do is tilt it up so that the top part can get under this weather strip. And this might take a little bit of fidgeting around, but you'll get it. And then after that's all lined up, you just want to push in those 2 white clips, and you'll hear them click, and that will hold the handle in place for long enough for you to get those bolts in, or get those nuts in. Alright, so you can see that weather strip is covering the handle. Now we're going to open up the trunk and put those nuts on the bolts, right where we took them off from. I used a little bit of thread locker on the nuts just to make sure that they don't loosen over time. You definitely don't want to over tighten these outside ones because you could break the glue that you just put on with that rotational force. So I decided to use a screwdriver instead of a drill or a socket wrench just to make it easier to limit how much torque I was applying. So remember, you can take this blue thing off to get it out of the way and just tighten down all 4 of those nuts with a little bit of thread locker. With the center 2 bolts, because we're still using the original length but they're further back into the handle, you might find it a little harder to get the nut threaded on. So you might have to actually push in a little bit harder to get it to catch, just because it's sticking through just barely enough. So I actually had to use a drill to kind of push on it and give it some force to get that to thread on. But once it worked, it felt super strong. And once you're done there, you're just going to put this trim piece back on. You just line it up, clip it back in, and from here you should be good to go. So yeah, shout out Bamboo Lab. That's where I got my 3D printer from. Super cool that I can just repair this using something that I made at home. And here's me just testing out the handle, seeing how it feels. Right now it feels very strong. I don't have any doubts about it. We'll see how it ages with the glue and everything, but I really think this repair should last me a while. So yeah, this is just me testing it over and over. It was super fun to just see it working again, see that I fixed it myself without having to buy a completely new part. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm just gonna clean up my tools, but if you wanna try out this repair for yourself, just check out the link in the description. Just wanna help other people out, fix their Prius at home without having to buy too many new parts. So yeah, thanks for watching.